allow us to give about 2 or so minutes for other people to join in. We had about 95 people registered, and people are still joining in slowly. So I will invite you, if you can, to write on the chat, where you're joining us from and what color represents your mood right now. Where are you joining us from? And what color represents your mood right now? Where are you joining us from? Represents your mood right now. Yeah. I will just have some soothing music play. Uh, yeah, as our presenters are still already with us, as we give a few minutes, just about 1 more minute. 1 more minute. Thank you. So welcome yet again to our webinar today, which is titled The Burnout Epidemic, Helping Teams Thrive Without Losing Productivity. And I can see I've had one person on the chat saying they're joining us from Kisumu, and the color of the mood right now is blue. I have Maria, who's one of our facilitators, who's joining us from Nairobi, and she says her color is yellow. And then Damaris, another of our facilitators, joining us from Kiambu, and her color is also blue. So we have two blues joining us today. My color right now is, I think, orange. So it's a bit of fire, but not too much, not too much red, although I'm wearing red today. So thank you very much. And we'll go right to it. As people join in, we shall invite them to also share where they're coming from. And if you do know a friend who should be on this webinar, please tag them and ask them to join us so that we can then keep time and be done by 7 o'clock, which is usually what we want to do. So a little bit about Profiles International, the company bringing you this webinar. We are part of an organization that has been delivering assessments and trainings over 200 years, and this is the Wiley, a brand of assessments. What we want to do is to help shape the world of work in Africa. We believe that Africa is not lacking for talent, and Africa is obviously where the future is. So we believe that if we can then equip African workplaces to be synonymous with growth, empathy, and innovation, we will be setting new global benchmarks every single day. So our mission and what we do every day is to equip for thriving cultures. And we do this through our assessments, our trainings, our coaching, and through the digital learning that we also offer for various organizations. So if you've come across any of these brands, the PXC Select, Genos, Everything Disc, Cross Knowledge, and the Five Behaviors, these are brands that we represent as Profiles International. And today, the brand that brings the topic that we are talking about today is actually Genos, the emotional intelligence workplace solution, of which our facilitators today, Damaris Lilech and Maria Simiyu, are facilitators. So if you are looking to grow in the skill of emotional intelligence, then you are in the right company. You just have to reach out to either our facilitators and they will guide you. They can have coaching conversations with you, or they can run for you and your teams conversations around how to build more effective teams, how to leverage on emotional intelligence to create the kind of culture that allows people to speak up, that allows for innovation, and all the things that the future world of work will demand from us. So without further ado, um, I want to actually introduce the panelists, and I want to read um, their bios, and I will start by reading a brief bio about Maria Simiyu. Maria is a senior human resource leader with over 20 years of experience, and she's been helping organizations build high-performing, people-centered workplaces. She partners with leaders to strengthen organizational culture, develop leadership capability, enhance employee engagement, and improve performance. Yeah. She's an emotional intelligence practitioner and a DISC practitioner. She's very passionate about leadership, and she believes that we should equip ourselves with self-awareness, communication, and people management skills in order to build resilient, engaged, and high-performing teams. And that is why we're here today to speak about how can we build resilient, engaged, high-performing teams and still not suffer from burnout. So a big welcome to Maria Simiu. If you can show her some love with all the reactions that we normally have on the chat, as I then also read out the bio for our next facilitator, who is Damaris Lilech. So Damaris is currently the head of people at Open Capital, bringing over 2 decades of extensive experience in human capital space. She is also a highly credentialed professional holding accreditation such as ICF coaching, Janus International Emotional Intelligence Coach, and a Clarity 4D certified practitioner. So before her role at Open Capital, she has served as the Associate Director of People, Performance and Culture at KPMG East Africa. She has also, her expertise lies in personal development, culture transformation, leadership development, learning and development, career coaching, and performance development. She holds an MBA in Human Resource Management from the United States International University and a bachelor's degree in Education, Science, Math, and Chem. She is a board member and sits at several boards. And she's also, beyond her professional endeavors, she's deeply committed to social impact. She actively mentors young people and engages in church and community service. She's particularly passionate about developing the future leaders and promoting youth and women's wellness and making a tangible impact on their lives. So a big welcome to these two lovely ladies who have given their time today to speak to us about what is burnout, how does it develop, what are the warning signs, and we're going to do this through a moderated conversation with myself and the two facilitators. And I would first like them to say a hi to greet everyone on this call. So Maria, I'll invite you to start and greet our audience today, and then Damaris the same. I can see some reactions are coming.
Thank you very much, Vicky, and thank you for everyone who's found the time to join us for this conversation. We hope that as you walk away, we will either have left a mark somewhere or got you thinking around what you need to do, not only for yourself, but for your teams.
Mm-hmm. Yes, thank you, Maria. What about you, Damaris?
Yeah, thank you very much, Vicky and the Profiles team. Really excited to be having a conversation that I think is one of the most researched currently in the workplace, and hoping that, we can talk about how we manage this, frequently spoken about, but deeply researched, but not quite fully understood in a lot of workplaces. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So I will start with a very simple question, and I'll start it to you, Damaris, and then, of course, Maria, you can add in. What is burnout? How do we define burnout?
Yeah, thank you, Vicky. So for me, I think burnout has been discussed as many things, but the way I would look at it, I think, is an occupational sort of phenomena which is caused from chronic workplace stressors and largely confused sometimes with being tired. But being tired, you can recover from it. But when you talk about burnout, it is it's caused by chronic stressors over time, and then you start seeing, so it's a symptom of many things: workplace designs, lack of leadership, lack of resources, and all that. Yeah.
Okay, Maria, in your experience, what is burnout?
I agree with what Damaris has said, and I like the World Health Organization, which has really defined it as an occupational syndrome. It is very specific for World Health Organization, which said it occurs as an occupational syndrome. And really, it's resulting from chronic workplace stress that has not been successfully managed. But what I want to add to what Damaris has said is that it actually shows up in 3 dimensions. So I don't know whether you've ever had yourself kept on saying, I'm tired. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mhm.
You have conversations with people and people are just telling you, I'm tired. Or you're walking with somebody, they're like, but it's morning. We've just come in and people are already telling you, I'm tired. So they
Mhm.
say it shows up in the first element, exhaustion. The second element is in cynicism. You know, people who just don't care anymore. And you
Mhm.
meet somebody who you know loved what they do. But every time they're talking about their work, it's become negative, it's become a workload, it's become such a chore. Then you start, you're like, this one is on down that path. And then the last one is reduced professional effectiveness, where you sit in front of your machine. I don't know how many people, or if this has ever happened to you, and you are just staring at the screen. Nothing is coming. 1 hour, 2 hours, you've woken up, gone there. So that thing that you used to do like this is taking a whole lot of time to be able to
Mhm.
complete. So once you start looking at some of these things, then you realize, and I came across a phrase that I found that was captured really what burnout is. And it says
Mhm.
burnout is less like a heart attack and more likely like rot. It develops quietly until one day the damage becomes obvious.
Oh, okay. I like that last definition. Until one day the damage becomes obvious. What has been your experience with burnout, Damaris?
Yeah, thank you. And this is very interesting because from what Maria said, actually burnout first affects perception before it affects productivity. So by
Mhm.
the time that is affecting productivity, it has affected your perception of that workplace. That's why you come, stay at your machine, and you just do nothing is happening. At some point, you have got like 10 tabs open because there's something to do, nothing
Mhm.
gets finished, and people are just tired, in the morning. And my experience has been a time when I think the most visible I can think about was a time that it's interesting that when you talk about the cycle of burnout, it starts with very high performance. And everybody thinks that you're really performing long hours, delivery and all that. And I think I was in a space like that myself. And one morning I just started getting this, many headaches and I was tired, but I was delivering and we'll talk about, I'm sure at another stage, where it comes from and what we're trying to, when you're talking about intrinsic things that really demonstrate why you're getting burnout. And I wasn't sleeping well. And then, so by morning, half the night I wouldn't be, really sleeping well. But in the morning, I'm tired. I'm literally very tired. I go into meetings, I'm not participating, and everybody's calling me out, and they can see I have lost energy, but I cannot see it by myself. And I
Mhm.
recall one morning I was going to work, and I was so tired, I was so sleepy, and I literally, that you feel like you want to put pegs on your eyes, and you're
Yes,
driving.
yes, yes.
And I removed my jacket, I put on the AC, but I was still very, very tired. And the
Mhm.
next thing I knew is I banged somebody's car from the back. And when I stopped, I just told the guy, I'm sorry, I slept. I just dozed for a second. Thankfully, it
That
was
was
just a
it.
flat face. Yeah, but that really shook me. And when I looked back at what had been happening, then I had seen the signs I wasn't sleeping well. I was very irritable at work, and my team
Mhm.
knew exactly what was happening. But it was a
Mhm.
time when there was this project where we were completely understaffed, and I think I didn't delegate my work appropriately. So over a period of 2 months, I was extremely tired, and I was also doing a course. So at the same time, it's come from work, do an exam later. I literally was not, and I thought I was a star. I was doing an exam. I was actually telling everybody I'm still doing an exam. I'm doing
Yes.
well. I've delivered this, but inside of me, things were sort of just breaking up. So that's what I
Yeah.
would recall as one of those very vivid seasons when I really had burnout.
Mhm. Mhm.
Yeah.
Okay.
And
Okay.
obviously, being a head of HR across, I've seen it with many people, some that ends up being extreme to people getting into admissions and all that, and a lot of attrition and other things. But that was my personal experience with burnout.
With burnout, so the lack of energy when you're getting into meetings, irritability with the people around you, uh, and I guess you must how now that you've seen it, you've studied it, and this goes to you, Maria, and also to you, Damaris. What are some of the warning signs? I know you've talked about that feeling of tiredness or I know that's Maria, and then
Yeah.
you've shared about irritability. What other
Yeah.
signs come up
Okay.
that we should look out for? Yes.
I will add the sign of anxiety. We talk about being anxious, but there is crippling anxiety when you're faced with this particular project and you are constantly asking yourself whether, am I really capable? You're just really anxious all the time. And then you all of a sudden start feeling very overwhelmed, even for tasks that you could do so well. Damaris has talked about it. You're managing a large project, things are going on well, but all of a sudden you just start feeling very, very overwhelmed and things start falling through the cracks. So that's a warning sign for you. In terms of physical, there's something that we call psychosomatic. Your body actually gives you so many warning signs. She already talked about headaches. She already talked about sleep. There is a level of constant fatigue. There is feeling tired and then there's fatigue, whereby you sit somewhere and you're just slumped and you can barely muster the energy to eat or to do anything. So you start finding out that when people are trying to get you to do anything outside of your normal routines, you're just not available. And it's not that you can't, but you're tired. Really, chronic fatigue is real. The other thing that we start seeing is that you make more mistakes. Yeah. All of a sudden, your work, you didn't catch something that you should have caught. You're missing deadlines that you shouldn't be missing. And one of the behaviors that I really like is what we call presentism. I'm there, but I'm not there. So yes, I have come, I've sat, and there are very many people who are doing that because you're like, but you were seated at your desk the whole morning.
I can't
The
tell what
report is
happened.
not
I don't
ready.
know what I did.
And the person just cannot explain. So we start seeing that there's increased absenteeism, of course, brought in by small. Mara and I have a cold. Somebody who you never even used to get a cold or anything. Now you have a cold. Now you're catching small things. So it's just telling you that your immunity and your body is actually screaming at you to stop and really do something about it. Yeah, so those are the things I think I can add.
Okay, I actually like that one you're calling presentism. There are times I've sat at my desk and I cannot account for anything. I feel like it was just a like white noise. That white noise they have on the TV, or something like that. Yeah. And so what's the impact on the individual, Jamaris? Like all this.
Yeah, and maybe before I go to the impact, I think one thing to look at here is the pattern, because it could happen once. The fact that you had a headache on one small project and you then got out of that may not necessarily amount to burnout. But I think what people should look out for is that there is a pattern. It becomes a pattern. You're procrastinating, you're losing concentration, you're having so many mistakes. So it's important to really, really point out that pattern where you are now having, you're sort of like moving from your everyday behavior. And I think Maria called that out by saying somebody who was very excited about what they do, somebody who was always very happy, just sort of starts withdrawing. And I think that's what we should look out for as leaders, that, especially when you're saying it's not a one-off time, it's something that's becoming consistent variation from your normal behavior. And the other thing also to look at this is a lot of the signs may show at the individual level, but again, sometimes you want to say, what are those warning signs at organizational level? Because remember, I said is a relationship between people and the environment that they are in, and these become symptoms around how work is designed in an organization, whether resources are available, whether there's quality leadership and all that. So the same thing could become signs across several people in an organization. And therefore, then you start knowing this is something that's becoming a prevalent thing within an organization where there's even absenteeism. I've seen times maybe you start noticing a trend of absenteeism from a certain group of people, from a certain people, like there's a lot of more sick leave from people on a certain project, or people reporting to some certain leadership, or people in some certain departments are starting to get absent. There's a lot of turnover. There's a lot of conflict because people are very edgy. Maria talked about anxiety and all that kind of thing. When people are anxious, they tend to, or they're fatigued, people are impatient. So there's a lot of conflict in the workplace and lots of trust issues. And then one of the things that I've noticed very interesting is and I think, like I said, for myself, when I was at that point, I'd get into a meeting and I'm just not present. So I'm not even participating. I don't know that you've been to meetings and they are quiet meetings. People are just not talking. You know, a meeting just being run by the leader and you run and you run. And when it's time, people just pick their laptops and go. That could be
Yeah.
also a sign, you know, especially where people are coming from very, very engaging meetings. So I think it's important that, and one of the other things that I know at organizational level that I've seen is where there is crisis mode all the time. People are asking for things last moment all the time. There's just that not planning. I think when you start, even for yourself at individual level, when you start saying you're always on a crisis mode, then you've got to ask yourself exactly what is happening. But when we then now move to the question that you did ask me about the impact of this, obviously, first on the person is your energy just goes. You know, you just don't have any more energy to do what you've always been doing. It really does affect your health and just how you show up. Because if you're this tired, if you're this fatigued, you're anxious, then you cannot show up. And people will just see that it's having an impact on you physically, emotionally. There's that emotional disengagement that you feel. And it also takes away a lot of your confidence. When you start burning out, because you're making so many mistakes, there's a lot of rework. There's a lot of many hours spent, but you did nothing. Like you, Vicky, there are times I wake up and I know I have 20 things to do, and I'm on my machine and it's 5 p.m. and I'm going home. I'm like, what did I do? And then now I'm under pressure in the evening to again do this. And that's why it becomes of like a pattern and a behavior. And it starts making you lose your confidence because people start calling out deadlines. You're always getting polite reminders until they're not polite anymore. Then you cannot be creative. You don't even have time to sit and be innovative and and just create things because you're just ticking boxes. You're just moving and moving and moving. So there isn't that time spent to think through things, to, in this day of AI, when AI will have done 60% of, just supposed to bring out the thought process, the creativity, then that's completely missed. One that is interesting, and I've seen and I've observed from people a lot of this, is that when people get to a certain level of burnout, they have a lot of self-mistrust because you're losing confidence. So you stop now trusting yourself. In fact, when you read this book of Speed of Trust, and they're talking about the various different waves of trust, and one of it is self-trust. Before you can trust other people and then move to organizational market trust and everything, the first trust is on you. People who are burnt out tend to lose their self-trust and then their confidence. And so consequently, then relationships kind of just get broken. So those are some of the impacts I can think about when people start getting to burnout.
Yeah.
Okay.
And
Yes,
I want
Maria.
to add on to what Damaris had said. That sometimes also as leaders, as people come in, we forget that, as somebody said, there's an invisible backpack that every Kenyan employee is carrying. Yeah, there's the rising cost of living, there is long commutes, there is supporting extended family, there's school fees, there's medical emergencies, there's multiple financial obligations, there's job insecurity, there is WhatsApp availability that for many of us means that work follows you everywhere. Yeah, because sometimes your boss is like, sing time to me to WhatsApp, to me too, or even your colleague is asking for something. So those boundaries are not there. And then there's the hustle culture because we all have found that
Yes.
our needs outweigh what our employer is capable of giving us. So already the person is coming in and they're not fresh at all. And so it is important for us to be cognizant that already the pressure that the individual is coming with, some of that, what is contributing to the burnout is also these other factors that are weighing upon this person as they come to work. And as Damaris was also speaking, I think I read somewhere where they were saying that burnout is not an issue of time management. It's actually an issue of energy. How are you managing your
I
energy
see.
levels?
Okay. Oh,
Yes.
wow. Okay.
Mm,
Okay. That's an interesting perspective. I guess it also shifts mine a little bit because I look at my tasks and I'm like, okay, there are too many to fit into 24 hours. But one of the things as you're speaking is and especially that thing about trusting yourself and your competence. And I think I resonate with that because sometimes when you are really, really under pressure and there's so many things or proverbial balls falling everywhere. You start first asking yourselves, how did you get yourself into this situation? What kind of person are you to even get yourself into this situation? I mean, who does that? Then the next thing, now all these things, in fact, we don't even finish them. Oh my goodness, let me just go sleep. Then you go, you sleep some more, you wake up, then you have another whole pile. And I'm just thinking, I'm like, yeah. And it's funny because at that point, you think you're overwhelmed. Yeah.
Mm.
But it could be just not just overwhelm, it's actually something different. And when you talk
Yeah.
about the energy, I mean, you're not putting in the energy required to fulfill the tasks in the manner and the time, I imagine. Anyway, that's just me paraphrasing what I'm hearing. So my next question is, what should we do? First, we'll start with we. So, what practical tips could you give us first as we, before we now go now to the topic of the day, which was talking about helping teams thrive? So, me as their leader, what do I do? And then, secondly, now the second part of that question is, what do I help others do? So, I don't know who wants to go first. Maybe Damaris, because Maria, you had spoken to us last.
Yeah.
Yeah, interesting. What do I do? I think the first step is awareness. Because, like we said, many times we catch ourselves very, very late in the day when it's all
Yes.
that. And I think as Maria was talking about being present, I always ask myself, how present am I to myself? How much time do I take for me? Just so that, Maria put it so well, there's sickness, there's family, there is all these things. So you're sort of just riding, you wake up and the day just starts and starts and you're just not spending time. In fact, I've realized that a lot of people only start noticing patterns in themselves when it is so bad. And then you look back, and I've seen people who when they're extremely sick, when they're in hospital, is when they say, and I noticed I would feel this way. Or when I look back, this and this was happening, or some other people are saying, or they've even been telling you, you're different, you're not looking, you're not glowing, you're not happy. I think the first step is you have to be aware. How are you feeling different from what you have felt before? And then once you now notice there is a pattern, that there is a change from your normal behavior, you start getting more intentional and deliberate in asking what is exactly happening, what has shifted, what has changed. Is it that I'm doing so many more hours at work? Is it that I'm not delegating properly depending on your role and what you're doing? Is it that whatever it is? Because you see, this is caused by when you think about burnout, it's many things. There's overload. There's you don't have the right resources. There is conflicting roles. When Vicky, you said sometimes you're wondering, how did I get myself there? And I know I found myself there when I'm at work, I have a lot to do. Then because, like I said, I'm doing mentoring, I'm taking care of women. In my family, I'm committing and telling everybody yes. And then I wake up, it's a Saturday. I've had a Monday to Friday that was crazy. And then it's Saturday, I've got 3 weddings. And I said yes to all of them. I didn't say no to anybody. So I've got to wake up early and I'm now starting to think, okay, I'm going to be at the church for this one. I'm going to go for the reception. By the end of the day, I have been around town, not enjoyed any of this, So then you have got to get to that point of what is really causing this. Am I getting overstretched? Is it work? Is there sort of some overload? And then now after that, you start being very deliberate. And I always say to the leaders, this thing of we leaders, people say to, oh, take care of yourself, draw boundaries. That does not heal burnout because it is so systemic. It's so internalized. You have got to find out, where am I in this situation? I like that question, Vicky. And that was a question I used to ask myself a lot of times. How come I never have time for me? Because I'm either busy at work, and even at work, people will ask me things and I never say no. And in fact, I say that top performing people in organizations get burnt out very quickly, and managers also burn out top performers because people like to work with people who deliver. And so I have seen, especially because I've been in the professional services space, that everybody wants to work with this one person. So you find this one person is on 3 projects running, and another person doesn't even have projects, but they can never say no, and they will never call it out, And then other things could be like I said, you're not being able to say no. You just don't know where your capacity is, and you're not asking for more resources, and you're not calling out. So I think once you start identifying, you're first self-aware, then you start asking, what is the root cause of this? Where is this burnout coming from? Am I not taking care of myself? I don't even have time to exercise. I'm not even eating healthy. And when you're burnt out, that's when sugar is best. You eat very
Sweet.
well. You and I know people will even start taking sleeping tablets and all that kind of thing.
Yeah.
When you start then now knowing what the root cause of this is, either I'm not delegating well, I'm taking up too much work, I'm saying yes to people so much, and sometimes maybe I was brought up thinking. Some people is because you were brought up fearing rejection. So you're always saying yes. You're always saying yes to people, and you're people pleasing and all that, even in the workplace. Then sometimes you're not bold enough when it's yourself, because at some point I know we'll discuss what the leader's role is, but your role is also call out some of those things. And like in many cultures, when you talk about the workplace culture, sometimes it's because of what the staff members believe is rewarded. And because we want that reward, if we believe that working long hours, then we will get rewarded, then we do that. And then eventually it burns us out. So once you know the root cause, then you now start taking deliberate action to address those. And just as I wind up, I recall a time I worked in an organization and people were rewarded. It was like performers were the people who stay up late. They're the people who don't come, who leave the office very late in the night and all that. And I recall what people started doing is people would like draft emails and everything. Then they'll go to a club next door. At about 4:30, even 3 people would go to the club, sit there, and then at about 8, 9 o'clock, they will come back and click send, 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 and then go home. And the managers, then you would see on somebody's performance appraisal that somebody said, oh, very committed staff member, always last in the office. And I kept telling these guys, by the way, they are the club outside. They just come and click send. And not only do they get the accolades for staying in the office late, in addition, if you stayed in the office past 9:30, you got a cab to take you home. So they also got the cab to take them home. So it's also about what are we rewarding? What do we reward, and what do employees believe that they will need to do for success? So you have to define it for yourself, that do I really believe that staying here long hours is what is going to mean success for me? And then where you need to talk out, speak out. It's burning me out. I'm not able to do these projects. You can't put me on another project. So that's the way I'd look at that one. Thank you.
Thank you, Maria. Now, towards the teams, and if you want to add, you can also add for what Damaris has shared. But now for the teams, when we start recognizing these signs, how do we intervene early? Now, this is to others.
Okay. I think the first thing as a manager, what question are you asking your team? Yeah. Because most times people just really ask about work. Yeah. Where are you spending your time? What are you doing? Instead of really changing that conversation to find out, why are you staying long hours? What is it that kept you? So that you can find out, is it that the resources are not too little resources? Is it that there's too much interference? Is it that you're micromanaging your team and just not giving them time to deliver because you're always calling meetings upon meetings upon meetings? And especially this, you start finding out when people are running multiple projects. And so they find out that they're spending so much time in meetings that they are not then doing their jobs or the things that they should do to deliver. And the moment they tell that to a manager, then for some managers, it becomes an issue rather than I need to step back and allow my team, trust my team enough that they've got it. Instead of finding out, so what works for you? When do you want me to come and check? What support do you require of me? Where is it that I need to manage? Because sometimes you need to manage the upward pressure that is coming to your team. We have people who say, when your boss's bosses are interfering, they come and they're giving you this and they're giving you this and they're giving you this, and because it's very difficult to say no to your boss's boss, isn't it? And we are then not talking through that enough. I think the other thing is, let's face it, not all managers are very good. So we find people not giving the appropriate feedback to somebody. And instead of just telling somebody where it is that they're not, they brought you a piece of work. And instead of telling the person exactly what is it that's lacking, you start telling them, you've spent all this time and that's what you can bring me. Can you go back and what? So you're leaving this person second guessing, and they've brought you draft 1, draft 2, draft 3, draft 4, but you're not really telling them what the issue is. So we really, as leaders, need to get a little bit better with the kind of feedback that we're giving to our teams to enable them to do that. The other thing is, honestly, I don't think we recognize effort enough. We don't recognize our teams sometimes enough to say thank you. You spent a lot of time on this. You did this. I recognize the work that you've really put into this project, and just say thank you. And sometimes it means it's okay to tell people, imagine, you guys, it's been a hard week, take the afternoon off. It is okay because you've recognized that these people, because there are times when things are coming at them, but we think, no. In fact, I really dislike it when I have conversations with managers where they're coming to tell you, my team is not coming in at 8. And then you ask them, but what time did this person leave the office?
Yeah. Yes.
Then they're like, no, it's not about what time they left. It's about
the
they should
office,
be here at 8. And you're
Yes.
thinking, this person left this office at this time. In fact, they should be coming in at 11, not the other way around. And I think one of the most important things in any team is creating psychological safety. We talk about it, but we still see the bullying that happens within teams. We still see the segregation. We still see the favored ones. We still see, so there's no equity in the teams. And the thing is, people forget that people watch. People can tell who's the favored one, who's the non-favored one, who's the this, who's the that. So even as leaders, are we ensuring that we're creating psychological safety enough for people to tell us no, push back, and be able to tell you that, yeah, that's what it is. From an organizational perspective, probably also, especially when there are so many cuts that come through and somebody is finding themselves doing work of 4 people, and then they keep on saying, guys, I'm now doing the work of, yes, and we're being told AI has come in, it should help you a lot more. We should look at how performance is measured, because we also have very unrealistic KPIs that we throw around. And then there's the constant restructuring. The organizations now that are known, after every year
they
or
restructure.
2, they will be project something. They're either downsizing, resizing, right sizing, so after a while, people really get tired. And as Damaris has said, the always on culture. Yeah. Just no boundaries between people's personal space and workspace.
Okay. In fact, now that you're even speaking about how, the things that affect burnout, and that looks like from a culture perspective, and I think even from the way Damaris was talking about we don't know what's rewarded. So I know she was talking about it from a perspective of what does success look like to me, but the organizational culture can also influence burnout a lot and cause burnout a lot. So and you've talked about psychological safety being one of the things that that really allows people to speak up and share, like, where are they on this journey of tiredness? Am I tired? I need that day off. But what is it that me myself now I can institute in my teams? What are the habits I can start creating? Very simple ones. Maybe you can give us 2, and then Damaris can give us another 2. That if I'm a person at this webinar listening right now, I'm asking myself, what can I do for the people around me to help them thrive?
Okay. I think if you have a team that's constantly working late, that's one way of finding out why are we always working late. Yeah, because you can find out that sometimes it's just lack of planning. Yeah, we don't plan. We are always crisis management, and crisis doesn't allow you to start planning and what. So people really don't look at what's out there, and they're not having regular meetings with their teams to be able to find out what's on our plate. What are the things we should stop doing? Because there are also so many things that people are doing that they shouldn't be doing, that's taking away time for the things that they would do. And This can be controversial, but I think it is time for people to be kind to their teams. As I said, people are coming in with a lot. People are already coming in. There's a gentleman who was sharing that he was having a very early morning flight. And so on the way to the airport, he saw a person he knows. And on giving the person, this was like 3 a.m. because you're catching those early morning flights. And he asked the person, where is this that you're going? And can I give you a lift to where you're going? And the person says, I actually leave. I have to get out of my house at 3 a.m. so that I can walk and make it in time. So they come somewhere from, I think, Wangige to make it to Westlands on time. So the person literally walks to work every single day. You can imagine that person, 3 a.m. What time is that person sleeping?
Is it even safe?
So I know. So I think when you're kind, you know a little bit more. If you know a little bit more about what's going on in your team members' lives, then there are certain adjustments that you can make for people. Yeah?
Okay, so be curious. I hear you saying be curious. Be
Yeah,
curious.
be kind and curious.
Be kind. Yeah. Okay. Damaris, what would you say? Yeah.
Yeah, that's really important. And I think it's the recognition that healthy performance is not in any way equal to low performance, but is equal to sustained performance. Because sometimes people think that when I do all these things, when I'm kind to people, I might be seen as somebody who doesn't know how to push for good performance. And I think it is more sustained performance. So it's not like you're doing these things so that there isn't a healthy level of performance for the organization, because you also need to, as a leader, then drive healthy, the kind of optimal performance. But I think for me, number one is model that behavior. In my career as head of HR, I've fought with leaders who send emails at 3 a.m. and 4 a.m. And I'm like, just schedule that email, write it. If you are comfortable with the 12 o'clock, if you're working at midnight, because for you that works, don't necessarily send that email at midnight. Schedule it for tomorrow, 8 o'clock, because people psychologically do what their managers and their leaders are doing. So if you're constantly the person sending emails in the middle of the night, leaving very late. I remember I worked in this organization where our leader kept saying that he didn't understand why people would leave him in the office, or why anybody would leave their boss in the office. And I was like, I mean, I don't know what you're doing in your office. If you're seated in your office at 7 p.m., you might as well be waiting for a date. I can't sit here and wait for you, and maybe you're waiting for your 8 o'clock date. Yeah. But it was really ingrained in my mind that my people don't hierarchically you should not leave your boss in the office, so if you have a manager who's like that, what behavior are they modeling themselves that makes people feel that this is exactly what my boss expects? Because people want to please you, many times people want to impress, or to be seen in a certain way by their leadership. So I think for me it's so important that leaders, as managers, you model that behavior yourself, that people can see clear boundaries. And the other one that I've seen with boundaries that I'm very, very keen on is leave. That I've worked in organizations across where people go on leave, and the manager is every 2 minutes you're being called, and you're not actually having your leave. But I like to work in an organization. I think that's one of the things I really love about my current employer at Open Capital. Is so clear. If I'm on leave, I'm on leave. No one calls anybody when they're on leave, So when I sign out, but it also then means I plan very well. I give proper handover so that when I'm away, nobody needs me. I've delegated work properly. I have also worked in organizations where the leader does not want to go on leave because I don't know, they think what will happen when they are away. And when their teams are away. Exactly. So you're modeling bad behavior, and therefore you're not helping people create the behavior. The other one, I think, for me, would be matching workload with people's capacities. Sometimes we just allocate work without thinking about people's capacities, and therefore people will struggle. You're not giving them, either they have other projects, or sometimes it's even capability from an ability perspective. You give somebody work that they've never done before, you're not giving them any support to it. So they are struggling with it. And as Maria says, then they will end up with iterations up to version or draft 10, and you keep changing and therefore burning
Yes.
people out. But if you
Yeah.
match people's workload and work
Their
streams with their
capacity.
capabilities, then I think you'll be able to help them. And obviously, they're prioritizing, planning, and all the other things that Maria very well articulated.
Yeah, there's a thing about even when you're delegating, finding out what level of readiness people have in terms of competence and also in terms of confidence, because again, that's something that people need to have to do work well. So I think it is, and that's why I think we keep saying that as leaders, you spend a lot of your time in that people space, constantly checking, gauging, understanding, being curious. And I think because of that, you also get your own burnout because people are mentally very, very draining, more draining than coming to do some tasks that you do 1, 2, 3, 4. So we are about 7 minutes away from top of the hour. So I want us to share our last remarks, something that you would like to leave the audience with about a burnout. It could be maybe a short personal story and then your last words, or let me not color it for you, whatever you want. So I will start with you, Damaris, and then Maria, you can close it for us.
Yeah, thank you, Vicky. I think one of the things I want us to talk about, end with is also looking in terms of awareness, what are those beliefs that we have, that we've grown up with that sometimes lead us to burnout. And one of the things that, in fact, I was recently speaking to somebody is that some of us grew up at a time when you were told that rest is not good, that if you're sleeping late, if you're resting, like you're not supposed to be doing this. And
Yes.
therefore, your subconscious mind knows that if I'm not working, I am useless, or I'm not going to be recognized, or I'm not doing this. I think we should also interrogate those subconscious beliefs. Things like saying no, where you want people to just, like, oh, you're the capable one. You've grown up, everybody saying you're the capable one and you're the capable one. And therefore,
Firstborn
even when you
syndrome.
go to the firstborn syndrome, those kind of things. I think for me, burnout is not just about workload. As Maria said, some of these beliefs and all that will mean about our survival wiring that's been ingrained in us for years. So let's interrogate how we are wired, what beliefs we have that lead us to burnout. Sometimes even when it's not anybody else's fault, it is our own fault. When we start reviewing that, then we'll be able to address it even before, because sometimes, unfortunately, we note when it's too late, we are sick and all that. I think it's good when we know it early and to be very cognizant of it and find why is it coming from. But those beliefs, I think sometimes people always blame organizations, but I've also seen sometimes we sort of drive it ourselves. Thank you, and thank you for the opportunity.
Okay, thank you, Damaris. So the self-beliefs, interrogating what do we really believe about rest, about working hard, starting from our self-reflection on our values. All right, Maria, over to you.
Okay, I will leave you with burnout is like driving with a flat tire. Yeah. Pushing harder only causes more damage. So it is important for you as a person to know your capacity and rest, because you see Kenyans, people go on leave, but they've not gone to rest. They don't disconnect. Yeah.
No.
That's the time you're going to do your other side hustles or get all the other. But rest is really important to just rejuvenate and give back your body. So it's important for you to ask for help, know your boundaries, and don't get caught out. Yeah. Work is not what is it called? I'm forgetting what we say about it, but
work is not
this, that self-fulfilling that many of us say that in African households, you could not sleep past a certain time because your mother, okay, of a certain generation, because your mother could not amini with all that work going on. So what do people do? There's a lot of, I must have activity. Yani, you can't just sit. Imagine it is okay to just sit. That's what your body requires from time to time, a day of doing nothing. And I was laughing because I told my friends during high intense whatevers, I normally have a weekend where I have scheduled, as in my work is to do nothing but to bum. And I loved it because it just gave me back my energy. So know that thing that gives you back your energy and use it frequently, because if you don't self-regulate, you will self-ban.
Mhm. All right, thank you. So if you don't self-regulate, you will self-burn. And I think the other thing is about filling ourselves with a lot of activity. And I think we are guilty as charged. So, ladies, thank you so much for giving us an hour of your time and filling us with such great wisdom. I have had so many takeaways. One is about trust, and I mean, the place of burnout when it comes to our self-doubt, our self-worth. And when it starts spiraling, and I can imagine, I mean, if you don't check it, then at some point, then you're really, really beginning to, can I even say self-sabotage? Yeah, basically. And it's a whole. And then the other thing also is the nuggets that you shared, Maria, like this last one, if you don't self-regulate, you will self-ban. And then about the flat tire. Yeah. So many interesting things. So thank you so much. And to our lovely audience who have been wonderful, thank you for listening in. As the facilitator started at the beginning, they said, we hope you've taken away at least one or two things that are helpful in terms of both yourself personally and the teams that you lead. And also, should you want to learn more about growing in resilience, we do have a program, if I can find it somewhere. Where are you, program? Sometimes you see programs refuse to come when we want them. Let me know when you see yeah, great. How to build resilience. And this is a simple program. It's going to take 90 minutes. You will get a short workbook to help you with resilience. You will, of course, listen into the webinar, will help you reflect to see some of the areas that you might be overwhelmed. And you can understand what that is. We'll give you also a small quiz that allows you to understand where you are when it comes to breaking in life and too much stress. So log on and sign on to that webinar, How to Build Resilience When Life Feels Like Too Much. It's only 1,999 shillings. And I think there's someone who's going to share the link on the platform right now, on the chat box that we're having right now. So other than that, thank you very much. It's been good to see you too. Maria and Damaris, always a pleasure. And to the rest of us, have a lovely evening and God bless. Take care. Bye.
Thank you, Vicky. Thank you, everyone. Bye.
Bye bye. Nice evening. Thank you.
Bye. Thank you.
Let me play some more music. As we